Called to order, Mr. Troutman. Has anyone signed up for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners. We have no registrations for public comment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Troutman. Good morning, Ms. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
How are we today?
Very well, thank you.
Oh man, that sounds good. You sound cheerful this morning. That's a good start to the day.
Happy Tuesday.
Yeah. Well, let's start this Tuesday with tackling agenda item 3, but we have no to consider under agenda item 3.
That is correct, sir. No cases under agenda item 3, but at this point, I would like to give you a heads up. There's a last minute change under agenda item 7 that will be requesting a case to be resubmitted. But I'll bring that up again at agenda item 7.
Perfect. So we'll consider tax liability cases under agenda item 4, and we do have tax cases on docket 6.
Yes, sir. And I just sent you the list. There are 21 cases before you on docket 6, and the list has been sent to you, and no cases were pulled for additional discussion.
Well, the computer's thinking about it, so give me just a second.
Sure, I'm sorry about that. I should have sent it earlier.
Okay. Oh, there it is. All right, I move we accept staff recommendations on the tax liability cases as shown on the list for docket 6.
I second the motion.
I concur with the chairman's motion.
Thank you very much.
Motion. We have no fair housing cases on agenda item 5.
That's correct. No cases.
Move to agenda item 6. We have no wage claim cases pulled for additional discussion on docket 6.
That is correct. None pulled, but I did send you the short form dissent list for wage claims on docket 6 a moment ago.
I saw that one too, so I move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining wage claim cases on docket 6.
I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 6.
I concur with the chairman's motion, except for the cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected in the wage claim short form dissent list for docket 6.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted. Let's move to agenda item 7, consideration of unemployment insurance cases on docket 6. Please proceed when you're ready.
Yes, sir. Let me start with that, the removal of that case I was mentioning earlier. Case number 2614287 is currently included on the short form dissent list for docket 6 unemployment insurance cases. And Commission Appeals requests that we be allowed to resubmit that case on a future docket.
What do you need from us?
Your permission, sir.
I agree.
Chairman, I'm okay with that as well.
Okay here.
Thank you. We will resubmit case number 2614287 on a future docket and remove it from today's short form dissent list. Please proceed with the first case.
Case number 2604051, Commissioner Alvarez.
The claimant testified that he did not receive the hearing notice. There was nothing in the claimant's testimony to cast doubt on the truth or accuracy of the testimony. Additionally, while the claimant's petition to reopen may have focused on his job separation, this alone does not make the claimant not credible. As the claimant consistently and credibly asserted that he did not receive the hearing notice, he had good cause for his non-appearance and the case should be resubmitted for merits. Claimant had good cause for missing AT1 and resubmit for merits.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The notice of hearing was mailed to the claimant's correct address of record and was not returned to TWC as undeliverable, and the claimant did not allege non-receipt in his appeal. Since the claimant did not credibly and persuasively rebut the presumption of receipt of the hearing notice, he did not establish good cause for his non-appearance. As to the merits, the claimant was discharged for violating the employer's cell phone policy after prior warning. The employer's testimony and documentary evidence supports that the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should therefore affirm the AT decision. The claimant did not have good cause for his non-appearance, misconduct, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Reverse the AT. Claim established good cause for AT1. Resubmit.
We will resubmit this case.
Case number 2623887, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant asked for some time off to visit her father, who had a stroke. The claimant received permission to go, but when the claimant contacted the employer to return to work, she was told that her services were no longer needed. The claimant was only out of town for a few days. The claimant provided caregiving services for a disabled individual, and the family made the decision to relocate. The employer decided caregiving services were not necessary and never replaced the claimant. The claimant's absence from work with permission was not misconduct. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, no overpayment.
The AT decision should be affirmed. The claimant quit when she took an indefinite leave of absence from work for personal reasons. Such a separation constitutes a quit without work-connected good cause. In addition, since the disqualification is appropriate, the underlying overpayment is also appropriate. We should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, overpayment $1,397.
Hold pending LEU investigation.
All right, we have not achieved a majority vote. Commissioner Alvarez, you pulled this case.
I'm okay with holding, as the chairman indicated.
Very well, we will hold this case pending an LEU investigation.
Case number 2625323, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be reversed. The claimant was discharged for tardiness. The claimant was late to work because the employer's inadequate parking accommodations. The employer's parking lot did not have enough spaces for its employees. On the final incident, the prior shift work had not left yet, and there were 20 cars lined up trying to find spaces. Her tardiness was unavoidable and did not constitute misconduct connected with the work. Reverse the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
The AT decision should be affirmed. Its testimony is self-disqualifying. I'm getting a little feedback here. She admitted to being tardy on the final incident date. She knew that her job was in jeopardy due to attendance, and she acknowledged that her supervisor told her that the tardiness due to parking would no longer be excused. It did not appear that the claimant adjusted her schedule or attempted to contact the employer before the start of her shift to explain her status. The claimant failed to take adequate steps to protect her job, and we should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Ms. Miller, short form dissent?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2626989, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision on the timeliness issue is incorrect. The claimant filed a change of address on the day that the determination was issued. Her change of address constitutes a timely appeal. This case should be reheard on the job separation. The claimant has alleged that she left her employment due to family violence. An employee who leaves a job due to family violence will not be disqualified under Section 207.046 of the Act. If the evidentiary requirements of Section 207.046A1 of the Act are met. The claimant was not advised of these documentation requirements before the AT hearing, and the hearing officer did not provide her with the opportunity to submit the required documentation either. This case should be reheard to provide the claimant the opportunity to submit the necessary evidence. I ask for a rehear.
The AT decision should be modified. I do not dispute the claimant's appeal should be deemed timely. As to the job separation, the claimant quit for very compelling personal reasons. The family violence statute under Section 207.046A2 requires specific documentation before a claimant can qualify for benefits under that section of the Act. As the claimant has not provided the required documentation, this exception to the disqualification should not apply to her case at this time. In addition, I cannot agree to qualify the claimant under Section 207.046A1 of the Act, since that statute requires the urgent, compelling, and necessary reasons for quitting to be work-related. The claimant's reason for quitting was personal and not work-related as required by statute. Since the claimant does not meet any of the exceptions to disqualification at this time, we should modify the AT decision, timely claimant appeal, voluntary leaving, no chargeback. In the alternative, I would agree to rehear for documentation from the claimant's counselor.
Timely claimant appeal, rehear to adequately develop the record on whether the claimant's quit was qualifying under Section 207.046A2.
We will rehear this case.
Case number 2633115, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified. The claimant quit her job due to dissatisfaction in the workplace. Specifically, the claimant was concerned about contracting COVID. The employer testified that it put together a COVID response team and issued a mask mandate. The employer was taking safety precautions. Nevertheless, the claimant resigned. Since the employer was taking safety precautions and since the circumstances that gave rise to the claimant's separation stem from COVID, the claimant should continue to be qualified for benefits, but the employer's account should be protected from charge. We should therefore modify the AT decision, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, separation due to the disaster.
Ms. Miller, I would agree with Commissioner Demerson. Hello?
And Mr. Chairman, I didn't catch your vote.
That's because I haven't voted yet. Give me just a second to think.
Yes, sir.
I agree.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 2633534, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. Both parties agree that the claimant's hours were reduced due to COVID-19, and then he was not scheduled at all after 3/22/20. The employer testified that the employer attempted to offer the claimant further work, but he was unreachable. That testimony was hearsay, and it contradicts the employer's initial response that the claimant accepted a new post and was a no-call, no-show. The claimant's sworn testimony, which was corroborated by his daughter, who assisted him, was more credible. The claimant could not reach the employer, and the employer did not call the claimant with a new assignment. The claimant's daughter confirmed that he did not have voicemail set up, else would be in a call log, and there was no missed calls from the employer. The employer has failed to produce credible evidence that the claimant turned down work. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, disaster.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. After the claimant's last job assignment, he failed to clarify his job status by not contacting the employer, despite the employer stating that further work was available. The employer stated that it tried numerous times to reach the claimant to provide him further work, but was unable to reach him. The claimant's witness also admitted that he did not have voicemails set up on his phone, which would prevent someone from leaving a message. As such, the claimant quit without work connected to good cause, and we should affirm the AT decision, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
From the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback.
Short form dissent?
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2635319, Commissioner Demerson.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. While it did not condone the alleged activity that the employer is being accused of, an interested party to a claim should have a proper chance at presenting its case to the commission. The employer states in its appeal to the commission that it asked for a continuance since it did not have adequate time to prepare for the hearing and was denied. The employer continues in its commission appeal that it had numerous documents and witnesses it wishes to present for the commission's consideration. As such, we should grant a rehearing for the employer's documents and witnesses.
The decision should be affirmed. The claimant was discharged by the managing partner for discussing workplace issues with coworkers. These issues included the managing partner sexually harassing an employee and the managing partner viewing pornography at work. Discussing workplace issues is not misconduct. Additionally, the claimant's act of telling the employer that she did not hire a certain employees was not misconduct. As the employer has not shown misconduct and appears to have fired the claimant in retaliation for reporting sexual harassment, the claimant should remain qualified for benefits. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
From the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Demerson.
Thank you.
Case number 2638225, Commissioner Demerson.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. The employer discharged the claimant due to policy violations that stem from the claimant behaving inappropriately toward a subordinate employee. The employer stated that the claimant began texting the subordinate about her appearance and looking at her social media pictures, and that this made the subordinate uncomfortable. In its appeal to the commission, the employer offers statements from the accuser and the claimant and text messages. Since this information, especially the text messages, could be dispositive in this case, we should grant a rehearing to provide this evidence.
The decision is supportable. The claimant was discharged for allegedly harassing an individual. The employer failed to provide firsthand evidence to support this allegation. The employer has not provided sufficient evidence to meet their burden of establishing misconduct connected with the work. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2640241.
Commissioner Alvarez.
Yes, ma'am. The decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for moving to Georgia. The claimant was injured in July 2020 and had not worked for the employer for 7 months prior to the official date of separation. The employer's disability insurer refused to pay the claimant benefits owed. The claimant obtained multiple releases to return to work, but the employer repeatedly refused to allow the claimant to return to work, even though the restrictions did not affect the type of work the claimant performed. The claimant moved back to Georgia after the employer refused to allow her to return to work the second time because she could not afford to live in Texas while not being paid. The claimant was allowed to return to work several weeks after she moved, but was fired for moving. All work was being performed remotely, so the employer was not harmed by the move. The claimant's move was not misconduct connected with the work. Because the events were a result of an injury, the employer's account should be protected from charge. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback, MVI.
The appeal tribunal decision should be modified since the case should be analyzed under section 207.044 of the Act. The court stated that the claimant was notified upon hire that she would need to move and continue to live in Texas to maintain her position. Nevertheless, the claimant relocated out of the state. Since the claimant failed to satisfy a known condition of her continued employment, she managed her position, which constitutes work-connected misconduct. We should modify the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Modify the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2640395, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision should be modified. The claimant was separated because he was denied a Human Reliability Program certification from the Federal Department of Energy. Neither the employer nor the claimant knew why he was being denied the certification. Due to the sensitive nature of the claimant's job and the certification, the criteria that must be met to obtain the certifications are not known. There was no evidence that the claimant was in any way responsible for the denial of the certification. The claimant's separation was caused by the operation of law and not for misconduct. Modify the AT, no misconduct, no chargeback due to operation of law.
The appeal tribunal decision should be affirmed. The claimant was aware that he needed a particular certification as a condition of continued employment. The claimant did not obtain the certification. Accordingly, per commission precedent, the claimant's failure to obtain the required certification was the equivalent of misconduct connected with the work. We should therefore affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
Affirm the AT, misconduct, no chargeback.
Short form dissent.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Alvarez.
Case number 2647282, Commissioner Demerson.
The commission should grant a rehearing in this case. The parties are in dispute as to the events surrounding the job separation. The claimant claims he was discharged while the employer maintains he quit voluntarily. There was inconsistency between the claimant's fact-finding statements and his testimony. Meanwhile, the employer stated that the final check given to the claimant in the amount of $1,000 was a loan and not wages. The employer has offered a copy of the check in its appeal to the commission. We should rehear the case in order to enter this evidence into the record, as it would further establish the consistency of the employer's version of the events and ultimately serve to make a more thorough and complete evaluation of the credibility of the parties. Accordingly, we should hold a rehearing for the reasons so stated.
The decision is supportable. The appeal tribunal is in the best position to determine the credibility of the parties, and they found that the claimant's testimony to be most credible. The claimant has consistently provided testimony that the employer had difficulty paying the claimant, and his wife provided testimony indicating that they had difficulty getting pay from the employer. The best evidence is that the claimant was laid off due to the lack of funds. Affirm the AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Case number 2656012, Commissioner Alvarez.
The AT decision is not supportable. The claimant was temporarily furloughed due to the impact of COVID-19 on the travel industry. The claimant was paid $593, which was only 20% of her salary, by the employer to assist her while she was not earning wages. The claimant and employer both intended for the claimant eventually to return to work. The payment to the claimant cannot be considered severance pay because the parties did not intend to completely sever the employment relationship. Additionally, the amount of payment was only a small fraction of her weekly wages. Reverse AT, severance pay eligible, no overpayment.
We should reverse the appeal tribunal decision because the claimant received only a fraction of her normal wages. The claimant did not receive disqualifying severance. Since the disqualification is not appropriate, neither is the resulting overpayment. Therefore, we should reverse the AT decision. No disqualifying severance, no overpayment. However, we should send a memo to UIO and CS to investigate the claimant's unreported wages for the 2-week period of May 10th, 2020 through May 23rd, 2020.
There's the AT, no severance, disqualification, no overpayment.
We have a unanimous decision, and we will send that memo, Commissioner Demerson.
Thank you.
Case number 2692012, Commissioner Demerson.
The appeal tribunal decision is fully supportable and we should affirm. The claimant was discharged after several days of being absent without notice to the employer. The employer presented 2 witnesses who credibly testified that the claimant was aware of the employer's policy regarding the limited admission window for entering the employer's facility. These witnesses also stated that after being denied admission to the warehouse due to his tardiness, the claimant never returned to work and never contacted the employer, despite the employer's attempts to reach him. Thus, because the preponderance of the evidence established that the claimant was a no-call, no-show for almost a week, and the employer's policy called for termination after 2 days of unexcused absences, the claimant mismanaged his position of employment. We should affirm the AT decision, misconduct, no chargeback.
The decision is not supportable. The claimant was discharged for failing to arrive to work during the employer's 15 to 20-minute admittance window and failing to contact the employer. The claimant denied knowledge of the admittance window and has consistently provided that he did not contact the employer. That he did contact the employer. The employer's witness did not provide clear testimony as to how long the window was open, and the claimant has reported for work outside the window before. The employer has failed to provide sufficient evidence to establish the claimant committed misconduct connected with the work. Reverse AT, no misconduct, chargeback.
Modify the AT, voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Short form dissent.
All right, we don't have a majority vote yet. Commissioner Demerson, this was your pull.
Right, and so we have misconduct and no chargeback. Let me visit real quick.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, let me have your vote again. Record.
Voluntary leaving, no chargeback, adequate employer response.
Okay, we're good with, I'm going to agree with the chairman.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Alvarez?
I'll remain with my short form dissent list.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Case number 2692298, Commissioner Demerson.
We should grant a rehearing in this case. The claimant was discharged for failing to follow the employer's safety protocols. Protocols are especially important in a school with young children. While the employer had technical difficulties which prevented it from providing video evidence of the claimant's wrongdoing in its appeal to the commission, the employer has provided new evidence, including policies, emails, and still images from the video surveillance, which shed light on the reasons for the claimant's discharge. Before we render a decision in this case, we should grant a rehearing for admission and review of this evidence.
The decision should be modified. The claimant was discharged for allegedly violating the employer's COVID protocols. The employer's allegations are based on a video the employer has failed to provide to TWC despite multiple opportunities to do so. Further, the employer was unable to provide any dates the claimant allegedly violated the policy. The claimant has denied violating the employer's policy, and the employer witness admitted to never seeing the claimant without her mask. The employer has provided insufficient evidence on which to base a finding of misconduct connected with the work. Modify the AT, no misconduct, chargeback, void adequate response.
Rehear.
We will rehear the case.
Terry, let me add, in addition on the rehearing, because the images submitted by the employer were difficult to discern, we should instruct the employer to provide these images in a format that maximizes legibility.
In a format that maximizes legibility. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Case number 2697681, Commissioner Demerson.
We should affirm the appeal tribunal decision. For the month of May 2020, the claimant requested to only work part-time hours because of childcare issues. By her own admission, she was not available for full-time work during the weeks in question. The Texas governor instructed TWC to waive or suspend certain unemployment insurance requirements during the early days of the pandemic. These included the waiting week and the work search requirement. On March 17, 2020, TWC issued a press release with guidance on these issues. However, the requirement that claimants be available for full-time work was not one of the requirements waived. Therefore, because the claimant was not available for full-time work, we should affirm the AT decision. The claimant was not available for full-time work May 3rd, 2020 through May 30th, 2020. Recalculate the overpayment.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant should not be held ineligible because the pandemic prevented her from working as many hours as she normally would. Reverse the AT, the claimant is available for work, no overpayment.
Affirm the AT. Claimant not available for work May 3rd, 2020 through May 30th, 2020. Recalculate overpayment.
Ms. Miller, short form dissent and memo to PUA eligibility, for eligibility.
Yes, sir. Short form dissent, and we will send a memo for an investigation of PUA and eligibility.
Thank you, ma'am.
Case number 2710531, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be modified. The claimant's former supervisor testified on her behalf, and her testimony established that the claimant had complained about the lack of PPE and requested a transfer to a location where she would not have to interact with as many people because the claimant lived with an individual at risk of severe illness, again, due to COVID-19. The claimant was told that the form she was submitting was for a transfer, but instead it was used as a resignation. The claimant clearly wrote on the form that she wanted a transfer. The employer's failure to provide proper PPE and failure to transfer the claimant provided her good cause connected with the work for quitting. Modify the AT, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, disaster, no overpayment.
We should modify the appeal tribunal decision. The claimant's emails and text messages gave the employer the reasonable impression that she was quitting. Thus, I agree that the claimant initiated the job separation. However, because the claimant quit over shortages of PPE caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, the claimant should be qualified for benefits and the employer's account should be protected from charge. Should modify the AT decision, no voluntary leaving, no chargeback, separation caused by disaster, no overpayment.
I concur with Commissioner Demerson.
Thank you. We have a unanimous decision.
Case number 2712582, Commissioner Alvarez.
The decision should be reversed. The claimant does not need to be fully unemployed to file a valid claim for unemployment benefits. The claimant provided sworn testimony that he was not paid initially and that he was only paid part-time hours thereafter. The wages reported by the employer demonstrated that the claimant's wages were reduced in the second quarter 2020 from the wages paid in the first quarter of 2020, and little more than half of what they were in the prior year. The claimant's testimony, corroborated by the reported wages, established that the claimant was at least partially unemployed when he filed his claim. Reverse AT, valid claim, no overpayment, and memo to investigate unreported earnings.
We should affirm the appeals tribunal decision because the claimant continued to receive wages from the employer while on furlough. The claimant was not unemployed when he filed his claim. Accordingly, we should affirm the AT decision, invalid claim, overpayment of $4,994.
Reverse the AT, valid claim, no overpayment.
Short form dissent. In addition to that, because TWC records indicate that the claimant has not reported any wages for the period of March 15, 2020 through August 15, 2020, despite wage records indicating that the claimant was paid during this time, we should send a memo to UIO and CS to investigate the claimant's unreported wages.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Demerson, I have your short form dissent, and Commissioners Alvarez and Demerson, we will send a memo to investigate unreported earnings.
Thank you.
And that was the last UI case pulled for additional discussion on docket 6. I sent you earlier in the meeting the short form dissent list for UI cases on docket 6.
I'll move we accept staff recommendations on the remaining UI cases on docket 6.
Chairman, I second the motion except for those cases on which I'm dissenting as reflected on the UI short form dissent list for docket 6.
I concur with the chairman's motion except for the cases for which I reflected in the UI short form dissent list for docket 6.
Motion passes with the exceptions noted.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
Time is now 9:33. The Texas Workforce Commission is now going into executive session via Teams to discuss the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, discipline, or dismissal, the executive director, internal auditor, executive staff, or other personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074A1.
Hey, Commissioner, I made it back.
You made it back.
All right.
I
All
was,
right.
I was clicking around thinking, I may not get in here. I'm gonna be embarrassed.
All right, we're back. The time is 10:37. The executive session has concluded. Is there any other order of business to come before the commission? Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Chairman, I adjourn this meeting. Make a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy your week.
All right, you
During the
too.
week. It's Tuesday.
Bye, Aaron. Don't forget my soup.
I will.